Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome back to Spook Vault. I am your fearless host, Space Chicken, and today we're taking a look at the mighty Luigi's Mansion for the Nintendo GameCube, where we know that the scariest monsters are real. This game doesn't have a lot going on glitch-wise, but what it does have is worth noting. So let's jump in and see what this mansion truly has in store for us.
Mario!
This first little trick manipulates the physics in a very GameCube-era way, where you can fuse the fairly primitive physics calculations between a few different objects. Go into Chauncey's room and pick up the beach ball by aiming the vacuum nozzle right at it while holding down the right trigger. Once you've picked it up, head over to any wall perpendicularly and slowly walk into it. This creates a loop where the ball bounces off the wall and gets sucked back into the vacuum only to bounce off immediately again, and so on and so forth. On top of that, if you tilt the C-stick up during this trick, you can really show off some impressive handles. Looks like the baby isn't the only one dribbling. Yeah, deserved. But listen, his name is even Chauncey, so it really makes you wonder. Also, I'm no parent, but I'm pretty sure this is not the proper way to wake up a baby. Yeah. The gravity arrows in Luigi's Mansion activate when stepped on and cause Luigi to start walking on the ceiling or flip back down onto the ground. This varies the playing experience, but like before, this function can be manipulated to change the outcome. To my knowledge, there is no way to force this to happen, but if you stun a ghost as you're walking onto an arrow on the ceiling, there is a possibility that you'll get shoved through the ceiling and land upright on the other side. This isn't actually a good thing because you don't have the ice element yet to fight this battle. I mean, you can fight it all you want, but you won't come out victorious. Nevertheless, sequence breaking is a lot of fun, and how can you go wrong with these boo buddies? Nothing ominous here at all. And to think, you all thought DS Lite screens had ghosting. I would tell you to try this one out, but it's not necessarily worth it for how difficult it is to pull off. I got the correct timing of this trick several times, and only managed to get this to work 3 out of the probably 50 attempts. But I will say this. This is the only time I've had the honor of seeing Luigi tap dance on top of an apparition. Here's a fun little endgame trick that requires vacuuming up the final boo. This trick is easiest done in a top corner, so once you wear down the final boo to the last of its health, try to hang around the top corner of either side of the room you're in, if at all possible. Capturing the final boo awards you a diamond. This diamond will spawn just ahead of Luigi, which is why being in a top corner is so important, because we want to grab the diamond as quickly as possible. So, once you vacuum up the final boo, run to the top corner, let the animation play, and grab the diamond before EGAD calls. This is tough, but once accomplished, you'll answer the call with the diamond instead of a fist. I don't know why this occurs, but I'm guessing the diamond attaches to Luigi's hand for the diamond grabbing animation and is immediately interrupted by this seemingly instant dialogue. The success window here is so tight that I even managed to start the diamond grabbing animation and still be interrupted by EGAD without attaching the diamond at all. But check out what happens to Luigi here, it's great.
Darkness, my old friend.
This next glitch involves defeating Vincent Van Gogh and his creations, or as I like to call him, Vincent Van Ghost. I mean, come on, how did they miss that? Once you get through the minions and say Starry Night Night to Van Ghost, disregard the dropped key and leave the room. Head out to the balcony, then go in and out through that same door several times. Come back to that first room, and voici, depending on how many times you went in and out of that door, there are that many keys sitting in the same spot. Pretty crazy, huh? You can walk right into them and collect them all, one after another. But there's some other weird stuff you can do here too. For instance, if you vacuum them away from their initial spot, try to duplicate another one and come back, the stack disappears. Weird. If you vacuum them into yourself, then you will collect them one by one, and each time you collect one, the stack will move one frame of animation through you until you run out of keys, or you're no longer colliding with them, which I find pretty interesting. This really is the easiest glitch to perform, so if you're at this point in the game already, there's no reason not to experiment with this one. Just be careful, because if you spend too much time listening to the music up here, you might lose your ear for it. So this one is kind of quick and dumb, but there is something interesting about it. You can move the toad on the balcony around by pushing from a few specific angles, which is weird enough. However, on top of that, I learned that you cannot talk to Toad from the left side. Luigi feels perfectly fine shouting for Mario directly into Toad's ear, which we really shouldn't take for granted. It's just so strange that it's actually difficult to push Toad around, but also oddly easy from the right angles. And also that Toad's closed off to the left side. I don't know what any of it means, but I just find this stuff captivating. For a tough but cool graphical glitch, go into the cold storage with Sir Weston. Once you light him up and get through the dialogue, start battling and wait until the last possible second to stun and start vacuuming him as the ice respawns. You'll know you got it right when the ice shows up and you're still vacuuming. Once Sir Weston escapes, the ice will show up in the spot he left from. There is no collision here, so you're free to coast around in this giant ice cube as you please. Also, for some reason, if you do this by the wall, you can actually move it, and I do not know why or how. This is basically it for this one, and it's almost impossible to actually pull off, so if you're up for it and you attempt it, you certainly have my respect. Alright, now things are starting to heat up a little bit as far as glitches go. So let's head over to the Bogmire fight to look at something exceptionally strange. This encounter is normally pretty straightforward, but there's a totally different way to approach it. During this fight, when you suck up a shadow Bogmire and swing into the fence, the ball bursts and you have to start again. However, if you point the nozzle into the fence before the ball is formed, the ball stays intact. And it's inside your body for some reason, and you can keep it there as long as you want. However, this is where things get weird. After a certain amount of time, the outline to the shadow Bogmire ball you have eventually falls off, and you're left with just the, well, insides. At first, I just thought this was one of the more bizarre graphical glitches I'd come across. But then I released the ball, and it teleported back to its outline, and shot out at the same angle I was facing as if I were back there too. So utilizing this new strategy, you can now fight the Bogmire with this strange portal-esque method. And I have to say, it's pretty gratifying getting a long-range shot in, so please do attempt this one because it is awesome. But if you're looking for something more challenging and you're playing on the Japanese version, head to the final boss stage and get to the very end of the fight. Once you're finally ready to take down King Boo, pull out the Game Boy Horror right as you're about to receive the crown. This interrupts you grabbing it, which stalls the entire scene. And this is one of those times where you just regret something immediately. I mean, this situation is just downright unsettling. The good news is you're not in any danger here, so you're free to roam around, and the fake Bowser body has no collision at this point, so you can just run right through it. You can also watch fake Bowser's disembodied mouth move around in midair, but I really can't imagine why you'd want to do that. You know, this game really does get kind of dark for Nintendo standards, and you can experience all of it right here if you really wanted to. But when you're all done here, the crown is around for you to grab, but it's invisible, so either stumble upon it or you can also vacuum it up to end this nightmare. Which brings us to the greatest trick of the entire game, where we'll have to return to where it all began. Chauncey's room. No, Chauncey's room. There we go. When you actually fight Chauncey, you get rewarded afterwards with a golden chest that shows up in the nursery. Now, there's a short window of time before the chest fully spawns where you're going to try to get behind it against the wall. If done successfully, tap R and hold forward to push right through. You are now officially out of bounds, and this is where the fun begins. Head right into the next hallway over and be careful, because if you get spooked, you'll drop right back in bounds, and that's really lame. Eventually, you're going to run into an invisible wall where to proceed, you're going to need to tap A, and Luigi is going to start booking it to a random door, and he's really going for it. Once you eventually get through, you're going to spin and make sure you don't get spooked from behind, because once again, that's very bad news. Head right, and here we're met with our first tough trick. Approach the bats, and once you trigger the first bat, stop and tap down right on the C-stick right as it hits you. Done absolutely correctly, and Luigi will actually skew sideways, defying the laws of gravity. This is extremely tough to do, so if you mess up, you can enter a room above this vase and return to respawn the bats. All of this is totally bananas, but we're rolling with it. Once you're properly skewed, head right into this top corner. Spin using the C-stick and you should pop over the barrier. Now you can't accomplish this if you're not skewed enough, so keep that in mind. Now, head down the middle hallway, keeping your eyes open for ghosts as you walk down. Turn to the right, head all the way to the end of the hallway, and tap A at the invisible wall again. This time, you're going to use the vacuum to carry some bats with you down to the end of the right hall. We need to get skewed again, and unfortunately, this one is even tougher. In this position, you're going to let go of R, tap left on the analog stick, and then immediately tap right on the C stick. Once again, done absolutely correctly, you'll get your second skew, and I promise this journey is almost over. Now, without moving, switch to standard mode and line up Luigi with the camera so that the camera pans downward. Switch back to sidestep mode and move to the back right corner. You should now find yourself above the rec room. So from here, hold up on both sticks, switch to standard mode, hold up right, then leave the menu and hit X immediately. Huh, that was a mouthful. But if done correctly, you should fall straight down and partially inside the wall. At this point, you might recognize that we're actually in the final pathway of the game just before King Boo. Now things get more difficult yet as we attempt to avoid triggering the cutscene in front of the door and also avoid getting stuck too far out of bounds. So press X to look around and find Mario in the distance. It's kind of poetic actually. Gently approach the painting, and if you've plotted your steps correctly, you will eventually be able to walk forward into the final room with King Boo, and you have successfully skipped almost the entire video game. Congratulations. That said, what you've just accomplished is much more difficult than just beating the whole game, but we don't do things on Glitch Vault because they're easy, we do them because they're ridiculous. So I hope you all have a wonderful Halloween, folks. This is the final hurdle before I bust out the Christmas music, but for now, I'm off to play Luigi's Mansion 3, and here's to hoping it's just as fun, just as charming, and just as eerie. And speaking of eerie,